You know, I'm starting to believe that only fairy tales have happy endings. I haven't had the best of luck with fruit eaters, and it almost seems like it continues to happen over and over again. If you guys have been keeping up with the channel, you know that for a while now, I've been trying to introduce certain fruit eaters into my outdoor aviary. The first ones that I introduced were the white eyes, and unfortunately it did not go well for me. I had a lot of problems during shipment and lost many of them this way prior to introducing them into the outdoor aviary. Now with these green honeycreepers, you can say that pretty much a very similar thing happened, but a little bit worse. Now let's get into that so you guys understand a little bit more of the importance of doing your research prior to buying a species so you know what you're getting yourself into. With these green honeycreepers, I wish I would have done the research up front, and usually that's something that I do, because in the outdoor aviary I need to make sure that the birds mix well with one another. I need to make sure that I introduce species that are overall passive and get along. And unfortunately, that wasn't the case with these green honeycreepers. The green honeycreeper is a small bird in the tanager family. It is found in the tropical New World of southern Mexico, south to Brazil, and on Trinidad. It is the only member of the genus Chlorophanes. They are roughly 13 to 14 centimeters long and weigh about 14 to 23 grams, averaging about 19 grams. It has a large or long decurved bill. The male is mainly blue-tinged green with a black head and mostly bright yellow bill. The female green honeycreeper is grass green, paler on the throat, and lacks the male's iridescence and black head. Immatures are plumaged very similar to the females. This is a forest canopy species, so the female green honeycreeper builds a small cup nest in a tree and incubates a clutch of 2 brownish blotched white eggs for 13 days. It is less heavily dependent on nectar than other honeycreepers, fruits and seeds being the main food, about 60%, with nectar 20%, and insects around 15% as less important components of its diet. Now, when I first introduced these guys into the outdoor aviary, it was very hard to spot them. They blend right into the backgrounds of the bushy trees, and they would hide in between these shrubs, very rarely coming out. And as far as their diet goes, the diet that I was providing them was mainly egg food and pellet food. So I would give them a variety of different vegetable and fruit pellets and different pellets that are designed for fruit eaters, along with, as you guys can see here, some of this egg food. And they would also go into the seed portion of the birds where I have for the finches, and they would eat seeds occasionally, although I didn't spot them eating as much seeds as it says on the article that we read a little bit ago, where seeds make about 60% of their diet. But what I did notice was that this species, once they took control of the aviary, or once they started to feel a little bit more comfortable, they started to get aggressive towards other species, mainly the female. This female was on a mission to chase every single bird inside of this aviary, including the male. It was incredible to see her, as she would be possessive of every single part of the aviary. She would be possessive of multiple feed stations. She would be possessive of the fruits that I would introduce into the aviary. She would be possessive of the water source in the aviary, and so on. It almost felt like everything in that aviary belonged to her. And she would chase all the other birds away from these feeding sites and watering sources, trying to make sure that they all stayed clear. Now, this is a characteristic or a behavior that I did read later on in other articles, where it shows that this species tends to be very possessive at the feeder. And I wish I would have seen this very early on, and it would have avoided so many different types of problems that I encountered while I had these birds in the outdoor aviary, because to be honest with you, this isn't something that I noticed right away. It took quite some time for me to figure it out. So to the best of my knowledge, I don't know exactly how much that has affected the other species that are in the aviary. This year, as many of you guys know, I've had a horrible breeding season, and these birds have been in there for a while now. So how much has that had to do with the birds not breeding properly? Is it because maybe this female is attacking some of these smaller waxbills that are trying to build a nest? Is it because maybe that female is not letting them eat and they don't feel safe in their environment? This is the important thing about making sure that every species that you go to introduce, you do the proper research on them. Because if you introduce the wrong species into your community, something like this can happen where it starts to affect the other birds that are in there, and it could affect them in their breeding. It can affect them in their health, where they begin to stress out because they're not eating as much as they should, and so on, all the way down to the point where maybe an aggressive bird can end up killing one of those smaller waxbills. Now, luckily, to the best of my knowledge, I have not had any of the small waxbills or any of the finches pass away. But what ended up happening was that unfortunately the male green honeycreeper did end up passing away, and prior to him passing, I did see that the female was constantly chasing him around. Now, I didn't pay too much attention to it at the time, and kind of just let it go and said, you know what, it's going to be okay, shouldn't have a problem. It's a big aviary, he has plenty of space to get away from her. But unfortunately, a few days ago, I did end up finding him dead. So as you guys can see, this is exactly why I say that unfortunately not all stories have a happy ending. This is something that I truly regret. I wish I would have caught it in time, or when I saw it, because I did catch it in time. When I saw it, I should have separated them right away on that instance, because to be honest, I still haven't done much research on this species. I know a bit about them, but I don't know as much as I should. I'll give you guys a perfect example. There are species of birds that during the breeding season, they're together, but once the breeding season ends, they go their separate ways. Males go one way, females go the other way. They are like that the remainder of the year until it comes time to breed again. Then they find each other and pair up. There are other species of birds that are together in communities year-round despite it being the breeding season or the off-season. So if this is a species that tends to be apart when it is not the breeding season, I can totally see why the female would hurt the male the way that she did and end up killing him. Now, I'm only assuming that the female did this. I don't know if the male ended up dying of natural causes or for any other reason, but I am assuming that based on the behavior that I saw from that female, that most probably she ended up causing that. So guys, just make sure, like always, to do your research on any species that you plan on introducing into your aviary to make sure that you know everything that you possibly can about that species prior to purchasing them. All right, guys, I hope that you've all enjoyed the video. Hopefully you've learned a couple of lessons. I know I did. Like always, if you did, remember to hit the thumbs up, like, and subscribe. And if you guys are keeping the species, let me know how it goes for you guys. Let me know if you breed them in a mixed community like this. If you have them only in small flights by themselves in pairs, do you separate in the off season and only pair during the breeding season? And so on. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and we will see each other in the next video.